Hi, I'm Linda Kay Gifford, and welcome back. I am a childhood sexual assault survivor. I am an author, a life coach, host of this channel, and after taking a hiatus to move from an apartment to an actual house, yay, um, I'm back, and I want to talk with you today about self worth. Self worth as it applies to sexual assault survivors. I'm a little rusty here. Give me a learning curve. Um, just because I was abused, assaulted in my childhood, I like to use the word assault, and everyone really needs to make that mental shift because abuse is not a strong enough word. Um, just because I have issues, and many of them stemming from my childhood sexual assault, it doesn't define who I am. And this is something that I'm just now learning. Um, in the past, I would have said that was true, but I would have not felt it on the inside. And I still struggle with that. And right now, I'm actually in cognitive behavioral therapy, an intense version of it called trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And I have been working in this capacity for about a week now. And my program is going to go on another 7 weeks. And I tell you this because even especially as someone who coaches others and writes about my experiences and speaks in such a way that I hope will help other people to find their own sense of self worth, um, I have to constantly work on myself. And every time that I think I've got it down, something else comes up that I need to work on. And the great thing about cognitive behavioral therapy is that it creates real and lasting changes by getting you to reprogram the part of your brain that really reacts based on body memory um, without cross referencing it with the part of your brain, the left side, that thinks it out and decides what is rational. So, this is what we're going to work on specifically today. But I'm going to give you an overview first of what I've been doing. Um, those of you who have, worked with me and been following this up till September when I had to take a break for moving and for my own personal work and to uh, nearly finish my manuscript, which I'm pretty excited is going to be coming out next year, this year. It's 2022, isn't it? Got to get used to saying that this year. Uh, this break has given me the time to kind of dive into my own issues and move a little further. So, I've designed a teaching and coaching program called Spades, and we're going to talk about the steps in that. And then, week by week, beginning next week, we're going to break it down item by item. Spades is my acronym for S, the shame is not yours. P, you have to separate the past from the present. A, ask for what you want. Don't just take what's given. And that goes across the board in life, from the boardroom to the bedroom. Ask for what you want. And I think I want to focus on spirit. I'm going to skip D&E for now. I want to focus on the last S. So we're going to start at the end today. We're going to start with spirit because I have so many years of therapy and working on improving my life and improving my relationships, not only with others, but with myself, especially with myself, because improving your relationship with yourself is going to give you the foundation to have a healthy relationship with others. And it's not always as easy as you think it might be to do that, especially if you carry around with you the memories of traumatic experiences. Now, for myself, and those of you who join me here, those experiences tend to be that of being overwhelmed physically and emotionally in a sexual capacity. If you are a childhood survivor um, of sexual assault, then it's a little more complicated because at a time when your brain was still forming and still growing, uh, you learn to dissociate from the trauma. You learned ways to cope and survive in that situation. And those ways now can be very helpful and very harmful. Generally, people talk about the harm that comes from the way the tricks that we learned to deal with what was happening to us. Um, I like to find goodness in there too. I like to point out that one can take dissociative skills and learn them, you know, learn to use them to cut off negativity in their life and to not allow themselves to go back into a place where they're being uh, at the mercy of narcissists and others who are prone to abuse them. But there is a negative side, and it reared its ugly, ugly head for me because I had a serious crisis of self worth, and I didn't recognize it as such at first recently. Um, I transferred it and decided something was being done to me instead of realizing that I was not dealing with something in a healthy, rational manner. And so I want to talk a little bit more about cognitive behavioral therapy today, too. And I want to start working with you. I know a lot of people are still in a virtual isolation. We've all gotten used to being more at home and having access to therapy. Um, like I have basically Molly is my therapist and I've known her for over 20 years and she's literally on speed dial. I called her up last week, messaged her 911 and I get a call back immediately. Well, I'll be that person for you if you'd like. You can message me through Messenger. I'll be happy to talk with you and message with you and work these things out. So, I want to give you the fundamentals of what cognitive behavioral therapy is and then talk a little more about spirit, the last S in spades today. The right side of your brain, as I was mentioning earlier, the part of your brain that feels before it thinks, the part of your brain that intuits, and then in most, I won't even say most people, we'd like to think there's a normal, but there's really nobody that's normal. You know, if you think you're broken, you're not. Um, you don't need fixed, you just need tweaked. You just need to examine these things. And when you feel something, it consumes you, and memories related to C-PTSD, um, they come with scents and smells and sounds and an immersive kind of experience where you feel that you are actually reliving what happened in the past. And that can be very overwhelming. And what we usually try to do, and what we trained ourselves to do, is try not to think about it, try to push it away, try to do something else. And a lot of people, and even therapists, will go that route, distraction. But when you really want to change it to where it stops happening, you've got to dig in there and you've got to do immersion therapy. And this is what cognitive behavioral therapy is all about. It's about taking the negative thought or the thought or belief that is consuming you. Um, and I have an obsessive mind, and it's very common for people like me, and perhaps you, if you have been uh, victimized in any way in the past, to have this ability to just think the same thing over and over and over. I can repeat the same phrase in my head for a very long time. I can say, how mad I am at someone, or, you know, just anything, any little thing. It's like thoughts can become like a ball in a racquetball court where the thought doesn't change. It just bounces around and it just bounces around. And you're trying to do the dishes and you're trying to cook and you're trying to visit with your child or whatever. And you just can't get this thought out of your head. So the way to deal with obsessive thoughts that are negative is to reprogram your mind to think. You have to take that memory, that experience that you had, and shift it from the right side, the body memory side of your brain. You have to shift that memory into the left side of your brain. And there is literally no way to do that by reading or just telling yourself to or repeating affirmations. That doesn't work. At this level, especially a trauma focused, which is a specific kind of cognitive behavioral therapy that I am doing. When you're doing a trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, what you do is very painful. It's very hard. I had to prep my family and my closest friends that I'm going to be weirder than usual, if that's possible, right now, because rather than swallowing the negative and the hurtful memories, when I have these and also the obsessive thoughts that are not serving me, meaning not doing me any good, not helping me to cope with my life or my relationships, that are actually being a burden on my life and my relationships. I have to think, and you have to do this. You can do this. I recommend you do this. Think, think, think. And then you're going to pick up a pen and you're going to start writing. Because when you write out your thoughts, basically you write what your fear is, and then you write why that doesn't make sense. Here comes my son. Yeah. Hi. Love you. Shut up. We have a great relationship. I have a good boy. Anyway, the act of writing, it's not so that you can study it and memorize it, but the act of writing something and also using drawings to bring out memories of the trauma, to dwell on the things that upset you instead of swallowing them and pushing them away, and dwell on them in such a way that you're putting pen to paper, that you're putting, I use pastels, whatever your medium is, that you're putting it into an art form. This allows the left thinking side of your brain to see it, rationalize it, and internalize it in a different way than it was internalized at the time of the trauma. So instead of dissociating in such a way that for me, it got pretty extreme. I was capable of dissociating to the extent that I would wake up somewhere I didn't know. When I was an adolescent and teen, I could end up in a field or a closet or on the bathroom floor, and I didn't know how I got there, because the trauma made me just go out of my mind. And because I was a child, my brain and yours, if you're in the same situation, did not form the kind of connections that and someone with a non-traumatic, more average experience in life did. So it's especially important that we retrain our minds now to think before they feel. Following me? Kind of complicated stuff, but it's not really. What I'm saying is, take that thought, think it, put yourself, you know what I did today? I took a 5.5-hour bath. I took a 5.5-hour bath. I did my CBT in the bathtub. I worked on it there. I just kept putting more hot water in. as I needed to, because I personally feel more comfortable when I am in water. I love water. Um, so you do what works for you. And I don't recommend that being drugs and alcohol. And I'm saying that because until recently, um, and increasing until recently, as I was developing problems this fall again with um, with my self-worth, with issues of comparing myself to others and my self-worth, I discovered, and my 16-year-old pointed out, that I was drinking excessively. And I said, oh, it's for fun. Oh, it just relaxes me. Oh, I used to do my live streams with a glass of wine. And now I'm actually close to stone cold sober. I had a little champagne on New Year's Eve, but I am no longer being a daily drinker because it it wasn't helping me to sort out the reactive part of my mind from the thought out rational part of my mind. And I needed to get them together because I was literally going to lose everything important to me, you know, from my partner to my business to my relationship with my child, and not necessarily in that order. um, I had to get a grip. And this is why it's important to remain in some form of ongoing therapy. um, as I've often said, there's no graduation date for survivors. I am a survivor. Some people don't like those terms. Some people say, oh, well, as long as you say you're a victim or a survivor, then you're stuck in this past loop or whatever. Um, Not really so much so. I find comfort in knowing, and you can find comfort in knowing, that you are exactly like a person who was in your situation and experienced your trauma. You're exactly like that person would be, because you're the living proof. You are the pudding. And accepting that gives you the jumping off point to examine and modify as needed. So I will be in therapy for the rest of my life. I may not go every week. I do take breaks sometimes. Sometimes, like right now, I've been doing 2.5 hours of intensive therapy every single day from 8 in the morning until 10:30. And today I went from about 9:30 to 3. And I didn't even realize that I'd been in the bathtub more than an hour, because I have the ability to get very obsessive, very lost in my thoughts. Um, I also have Asperger's syndrome, which lends itself to obsessive kinds of thoughts too at times. And again, obsession can be used for good, not evil. So we're going to learn how to use the things that come with being a survivor for good for ourselves and in the world, and not evil against ourselves and others in our lives. And that's what this is all about. So I don't want to get too deep into that today. This is really just a hi, how are ya? Um, it's a new year. I'm starting it sober. I am getting a headache because I just realized my hair has been on top of my head all day. Kind of meant to take that down. Um, but if you're feeling that you're irreparably broken, you're not. And if you think you need fixed before somebody will love you, you don't. But you know, like a soundboard, you want to ride that thing. You want to tweak yourself and your mind all along the way, whether you are a trauma survivor or not. That's a good practice. That's something important. But especially for us, we need to focus on not slipping down those, what I call, rabbit holes of despair. Um, I've talked about this before. We're going to delve more into this. The reason why people who have suffered traumas freak out is because it feels good. You may say to yourself, oh no, I don't want to freak out. That's what I said. I don't want to freak out. I don't like freaking out. It sucks. It's like on the level of when you come back out of it, the damage it's done in your world and your life and uh, to your sense of self-worth because you did it again, such as went to places that you don't want to think about, that you don't want to be in, um, drank too much, had stupid sex, whatever you do when you jump into the rabbit hole of crazy, it feels good to be there because it's such a, I'm not cursing anymore. I mean, I curse all the time, but I'm trying not to curse on here because it feels so freaking good. It feels so freaking good to just let it go. It's like a rampage. It's like taking a crazy romp through the right side of your brain. Um, don't have to think, don't have to be rational, don't have to care. You can cry, you can scream, you can drink, you can do something that for the time that you are whacked, at least you're not thinking about the pain of the trauma you've been in. You've immersed yourself so far back into the place that you were out. It's almost like, what's the analogy I can use? Like hot, like ice can burn you when it's too cold. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like you go so far into self-destruction that you're no longer thinking about it. And the not thinking is what feels good. Just turning it off. But when you turn it off like that, it just gets swallowed back down. It doesn't get processed. It doesn't get dealt with. You didn't learn any way to deal with it to make these feelings not come up in the future. So for that reason, I recommend that you do what I'm doing and take the time and the space to think really, really hard about anything that's bothering you, to write down what is the nature of it and what that looks like. So, as an example, my first assignment from my therapist was I always keep circling around to um, feeling like a piece of shit. That's like my go-to. No one could ever love you because you're ruined, because you're you're not normal. You're just a little worthless piece of shit. Blah blah. None of that makes any sense. That's not who I am. I'm Linda Kay Gifford. I own feelgoodfairtrade.com. We've been in business 4.5 years. I have the Sweet Survivor Rescue Fund to help people in trouble get out of trouble, get them somewhere safe. I have 3 children that are all wonderful and successful. I care about my health. I care about others. I love puppies and babies, for God's sake. So why do I sit around hearing in my head, you can never compare, there's always something wrong. Why? Because that is what my brain, that's the way I developed. That's what I learned first. And so I recommend that you stick with me or somebody and do the work and do the work. So it's January 2nd. I've got my New Year's finery on because it's as close to New Year's as I can get. See my sequins? Woohoo! And I am going to celebrate this new year, and we start now. So thank you for joining me. And we're going to dig hard into the course that I have designed. It's just a trigger management guide. It's just a simple trigger management guide, as I was starting to talk about earlier. My SPADES program, I like to do things in acronyms because then I can remember to check off that list. And I literally do these things every day. It's not something that I just kind of like throw out there. Like I said, surviving is a day-to-day process. There's no end to managing C-PTSD, just like there's no end to good health. You can't like eat a carrot and then eat cake for the rest of the week and say, I'm okay because I had a carrot on Monday. You need a steady diet of positive thoughts, and you need to take yourself apart and put it back together a little bit. That's all, a little tweaking. So we're going to work on that. We're going to work on that together. Let's see what. If there's anything I really want to talk about other than that today. Just kind of an introduction. Welcome back. I am streaming to both YouTube and Facebook for the first time right now. And I am hopeful that all is working well, but as my own IT person, I should probably check that. So you take care, and I will see you next Sunday when we are going to start for real. Till then, here's your homework. You just do the homework with me, okay? You can do what I'm doing. Take a thought that you know is one you don't want to be thinking. Take a memory that is painful, and instead of pushing them away, focus on it. Get out a piece of paper and write down your fears. Write down every negative thing you can say about yourself. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, nobody loves me, whatever. Then one by one, start writing why that's not true. So my therapist, I'm going to go a little bit longer here. My therapist told me, what does being a piece of shit in the world look like to you? That was my homework. What does being a piece of shit in the world look like to you? Now, I'm sitting here talking to you. It's probably hard to believe that I would go into that place, but I do sometimes. Not very often, but I did. I did a couple of weeks ago, and for the last, couple of months, I let myself slip further and further into a place where I was questioning my own value and self-worth and feeling, rather than understanding that it was my question, I was transferring it on to the people around me. Like, why are you being this way? Why are you doing this? Why don't you see that you are wrong? And my examination made me realize I was just looking at things through the lens of that traumatized little girl that I used to be. And I refuse to live my life being her permanently 100% all the time. I'm always going to slip back into who I call little girl, the part of my mind that is still 12, that is still seeing myself through the lens of somebody who's shameful and dirty and disgusting, that God hates. And now I can write down, no, you're not. And all of these things that I've written on the paper have now, because of the act of writing and just the way your mind works, have your left brain saw it. My left brain, my thoughtful, analytical brain saw it and said, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, this is true and this is not true and blah, blah. And I came out of it, and the fears that I had before are, I kid you not, they are just literally gone. I even spent some time today trying to feel the negative feelings that I was, the self-worth issues that I was thinking about myself recently, and I can't find them. So that's the beauty of cognitive behavioral therapy. Once you get it transferred from the right side of your brain to the left side of your brain, life gets so much better. And there are those who say, oh, this lady's just crazy. You read my comment thread, you'll find that someone's going to say, you're wackadoodle, bitch, or whatever. It's like, well, I will agree that 7 years of sexual grooming and assault did not lend me to excellent mental health, but it didn't destroy me either. It is my experience. and something along those lines, some kind of a sexual assault was also your experience, or somebody you love or that you work with experience, or you wouldn't still be listening to this. So accept it, deal with it, write it out, draw it out. And next week, I want you to bring your workbook and come onto the chat and tell me, because we're going to start doing that. I want you to feel free to interact. And I want to see what you've come up with that you do that is detrimental to yourself and your relationships and your sense of self-worth. And see if you don't feel so much better like I do after doing some homework that allows you to process it, reprocess your trauma in a different way. So that's all I have to say today. As always, please support the Sweet Survivor Rescue Fund at sweetsurvivor.com, which is now hosted by my store, feelgoodfairtrade.com, where we have been supporting women artisans around the world and women families and communities of artisans and those who are given alternatives to sex works and rescue groups where people are learning a trade. If you support these groups and this business and Sweet Survivor Rescue Fund, we can make a real change in the world. And nothing feels better to me and helps me to deal with my past trauma more than doing something for others in this world. And I think you'll feel the same way. Linda Kay Gifford. I'll see you at 6 o'clock next Sunday.